Hey YouTube, it's about time I get started on my series on wild edible plants for the desert region, Sonora Desert in Arizona. What we're looking at here are Tepary beans. We're going to talk about those today. We've got the Mitla Black, the white, and the Sonoran Gold Tepary beans. Let's get started. So what you're looking at here is a little experiment I started back in the end of March. And it's just a little raised garden, and I say experiment because I'm in the suburbs in the East Valley of Phoenix, Arizona, and B, I've never gardened before, although my mom gardened most of my life, and C, the Tepary bean plant, which you're seeing here, I've never done before. Obviously, if I've never gardened. But this plant, from what I've read, is truly an amazing plant. It is widely believed to be the most drought-resistant plant in the world. It grows native in the Sonoran Desert. The Native Americans here, in particular the Tohono O'odham Indians, use these as a main staple in their diet. They're extremely healthy. Over here I've got some tomatoes, and you can see a little garlic shoot coming up there. Some basil. This stuff is pretty common. It's just you can see some disarray there. My dog got in here and kind of tore things up. Luckily he didn't get into my stuff. At any rate, let's look at, you can see some flowers flowering in there. Now that flower kind of closed up a bit. It was opened up yesterday, and you can see a little bud starting there. And I can harvest them probably twice this year. I planted these at the end of March. What I've got is the white Tepary bean in the back and in the middle, and then these plants right here are the gold. I did not plant the black yet. Now, like I said, I planted these back at the end of March 2012, last week of March, and it is now, what's today, May 12th, May 13th, something like that. So this is what's happened in 7 weeks, something like that. I've controlled pests, insects and stuff, with a natural insecticide called neem oil. I had never heard of it. My wife had, though. So I mixed up some neem oil with some water. It takes a tiny amount, diluted with a lot of water, and it's very effective because when the plants were about 2 inches high, 2.5 inches high, they started showing spots and stuff like that. Now you can see here I've got some spots from insects and stuff. Some on that leaf there. But they were starting to get kind of bad pretty early on, and I just sprayed them a little bit with this neem oil and rubbed some under the leaves with my fingers, and I do it about every 7 to 10 days. I put a little bit more on, and as you can see, I've got healthy plants now. The trick with these Tepary plants is, obviously they're used to a dry climate. The Indians used to plant them in the desert, in the arroyos. Basically, the desert is wrought with washes, because the desert is so dry, the water can't soak into the ground as fast as it falls when it falls here, because we get really harsh, heavy rains that are real quick. So the water washes through the desert. And the places where one small wash opens up into another wash will get real sandy and kind of I don't know, the soil is disturbed and stuff, so they would plant them in there. And I don't think I've seen these out in the desert myself before yet. I know they're native here, especially if you get more southern in the state, down around Tucson and stuff. But anyway, back to my point, if they get too much water, you'll get nice, beautiful, healthy plants that don't produce any beans, or produce very few beans. And so that is another aspect of my experiment, is can I get beans on these? You can see the ground under mine is dry, and over here it's wet. I started off giving them a little bit of water every day, and then I cut it to every other day, and now I'm going a couple days in between, and I don't give them a whole lot of water. I don't know, it's an experiment. I think I'm doing pretty good, because you can see I'm getting flowers down there, and we're seeing some signs of, I mean, the flowers are going to turn into the beans. Right? That's where my beans are going to be. And my mom says I should get quite a few beans off of 10 plants. So we'll see what happens. So I made a fairly bold statement a little bit ago about these being the best bean in the world. What I meant by that was the bean, aside from being very drought resistant, which is obviously good for the region I live in, the bean is extremely healthy. From what I've been reading, I've been sort of obsessed with these things the last few months since I found out about them. I kind of came across them on accident. I was doing a search on desert wild edibles, and specifically the Sonoran Desert, and I came across a real interesting video about the Tohono O'odham Nation, which is down in southern Arizona, down around Tucson and just north of the border. Actually, it extends into the border of Mexico a ways. But what was interesting about it was the Indians down there on the U.S. side have, over the last, I don't know, several years, past couple generations or something like that, have seen a dramatic, crazy increase in adult onset diabetes. Meanwhile, just over the border, and literally just miles apart, the Tohono O'odham Indians there have not seen this increase in diabetes at all. And the reason why is when we put the Indians on the reservation and whatnot, when we brought paved roads in and started putting McDonald's in there and introduced them to cable TV and all this kind of stuff, diabetes started going up. Do the math. Meanwhile, just on the other side of the border, a lot of the people are still living in very much the traditional way. They're still planting their own crops. They're still harvesting their own crops and stuff. And now the Tohono O'odham Nation is working very hard at reintroducing these. They've got some large crops down there in Sells, Arizona. And when I say large, I think they're getting up around 80 or 100 acres worth of bean crops that they're doing. I want to go down there and I want to talk to some of these people. I want to try and learn right from the source about these. I just haven't been able to do so yet. So I'm going to continue with my experiment. I'll cook some up once I produce some, and I'm hoping also to produce some seeds from these. Like I said, I've never gardened before. I don't know anything about this stuff, so I'm just kind of learning as I go. But they are an heirloom legume, and I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
What are you doing, Sue?
And anyways, to get back to my point, I've been thinking about doing a blog, and I also have been thinking about doing an article on the Tepary bean for Self-Reliance Illustrated. I don't know if it'll get published. I don't even know how well I could write something like that, but it's worth a shot, huh? Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take it easy.